What is true sustainability? This morning we heard that there are several definitions. If we went to the dictionary nowadays, the Wikipedia dictionary or whatever our modern dictionary is, we might see definition 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to look at one particular definition, which I think of as definition 1 when someone's speaking of sustainability. It comes from the 1970 National Environmental Policy Act, which formally established as a national goal the creation and maintenance of conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony, and fulfill the social, economic, and other requirements of present and future generations of Americans. While that is not as eloquent as some earlier speakers, I think at least it gives us a data point in history, 1970, the year I was born, as far as what sustainability was considered at that time. My definition, really I think we need more than sustainability, because if we just get to a point where we're sustaining ourselves indefinitely into the future with no negative impacts, no more negative impacts, then we're going to be living in a depleted planet. The oceans are already depleted. Do we want to sustain that depleted state? Our forests are already depleted. Do we want to sustain that depleted state? Or do we want to, as I think a speaker mentioned earlier, do we want to get into a restorative, regenerative sort of situation? So my definition, sustainability plus, is capable of being continued indefinitely with positive long-term effect on the environment. So there are many different definitions we can use for sustainability. For my personal perspective, when someone says sustainability, this is the one that immediately comes to mind for me. And when I have a conversation with others, it's the one that I have in mind as well. So we should keep that in mind when we use that term, that there are varying definitions. We can look at the EPA definition. We can look at a definition someone's come up on their own. But whatever the word is that goes with that, maybe there's a word in the English language that goes with that, regenerative. Maybe that's the word I should be using. Regenerative is, I think, the target that many of us have if we had a target for the future. So Jared Diamond, he points out several stories. One of the stories is the story in his book of Rapa Nui, Easter Island, and how the people there were not sustainable. They did not live in a sustainable manner. In fact, they depleted every single tree on their island in order to go about their religious rituals and just their daily living rituals. He contrasts that. There's Rapa Nui. You'll notice that there are some trees right there. These have been recent planted. Apparently, Rapa Nui was all trees at one time, but they burned the trees and they used the trees as conveyances to build the Mori, is that how they're called? The Mori statues. Contrast this to the island of Tikopia, which is near New Guinea. And the island of Tikopia is only a mile across or so. And the Isle of Tikopia, here's our satellite image, courtesy of Google. The people that live here, there's about 1,000 people that live there. Those same people, that same family or tribe or group, has been living there for 3,000 years. And they have not denuded their island of trees, and they have not denuded it of plants or animal species, but they have lived in what I would call this a sustainable way. This is my model when I think of what is sustainability. Because clearly they're isolated. They do not, historically, they would only go a few miles offshore maybe to go fishing. They would probably stay close to shore. Most of their gardens were around the small, settlements in different parts of the island. When they had a hurricane on Tikopia, they would, if their crops were destroyed, then they would eat the native root vegetables that they would not normally eat, the icky vegetables. But they were there, they just didn't normally eat them. But that's what they would use to provide for themselves. They also had to come up, if you read Jared Diamond's book, or even better, read the original work, which was by, oh, somebody help me. Who is the person who studied Tecopia? Nobody knows. I have his book. It's called We the Tecopia by, I'll get it later. Who was it? Raymond Firth. Thank you very much. I've read about half of that book at the moment. He actually wrote several books on Tecopia. He studied this island in 1920 or so, 1930. The people there apparently happy for 3,000 years or so. Of course, European-style people started visiting them, and then their culture changed, and at the moment, my understanding is their way of living is not sustainable. They have a population growth problem, and they have to send people to other islands because they can't maintain a stable population on the island. They did have techniques for that, but those techniques are not religiously acceptable under current religious practices. Here is another example which is sometimes used for sustainability. We've got Hispaniola in the Caribbean, Dominican Republic versus Haiti. And if we looked very closely at the satellite image using Google Earth, we'd be able to see that Hispaniola still has many, many trees. It's green. And on the other side, Haiti is basically denuded in many parts of it. And it's especially visible, if we were to zoom in, right along the border. So a question I always ask myself is, why is it that we have failed as a civilization in achieving sustainability? Why have we failed? What is it that we've done? We've depleted the oceans, we've destroyed the plains, the topsoil is eroding, the climate is being polluted by too much carbon dioxide and other things. Why have we failed to live in a sustainable way? What is it? And when I think to myself, maybe late at night, the first thing that comes to mind is the laws. The laws in this world are not right. We need more regulations, or we need different laws. We need global laws, perhaps. Global laws about depleting the fish, or hunting the dolphins, or the whales, or whatever. Then I think to myself, well, maybe it's not the laws so much as it is the forms of government we're using. Maybe the form of government in the U.S. just can't meet the goal of making the U.S. or helping the U.S. to live in a sustainable manner, indefinitely sustainable. Maybe the laws in China can't do it either. Maybe there isn't any country that can live that way. Maybe it's religion, I think to myself. Is it religion the reason why we're not living sustainably? Is there something in our religious doctrine or in our upbringing? And as a father of a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old, I'm starting to recognize the things that I'm indoctrinating those children with, things that are part of their culture, and I have to indoctrinate them, because if I don't, then they won't be able to function in school or with their peers. An example would be when we go past the factory farm each day on the way to daycare, also known as a concentrated animal feeding operation, or CAFO. When we pass that each day, I at one point said, that's the bad farm. And we talk about, what might be the good farm. But I can't really do that too much because they're going to go to school with the kids that go to the same, live there. So it seems to me that religion, maybe religion plays a role in this. Daniel Quinn suggests it's not even religion so much as you even take religion away from it, and it's cultural stories that just are indoctrinated into our culture. And even if we removed religion or we lived lives that were devoid of religious practices as we normally think of them, that it's really the cultural stories that it all belongs to us. We can do whatever we want with it, and it's all ours and it doesn't matter. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's language. I think there's a number of linguists who have suggested that our language, English, is not capable of helping us live in a sustainable way because we see things through our language. That's how everything is interpreted. Even in our minds, everything is interpreted through language. And the last thing that I am very curious about is perhaps we have failed because of our monetary system itself. And if we go back historically and into the religious texts, we can see that issues of interests and debtors and all these things have come up throughout history as far back as we have written history. So I don't know why we failed. I don't. But I would hope that maybe for this conference we can explore at least one of them. Maybe money is the reason we failed. Maybe the monetary system as we have it at the moment is the reason we failed. But maybe that's not it. Maybe it's something else. I think I'm seeking for solutions, and I think that many of us are seeking for solutions. Maybe it's something else.
Aaron, how about sex?
Sex? Is sex the problem? Overpopulation? Oh, right, yes. This on Sunday, Marianne Lacerte will be here, and she'll talk about probably feminism and the role of feminism in cultural and government practice and whatnot. And, yeah, the strong father versus the nurturing mother style of things. Okay, with that, I'm hoping that someday we'll be able to live sustainably because I think the world is a beautiful place. I'd love for my 3-year-old son and my 8-month-old son to someday be able to live in a planet that is more rich in biological life, that biological life is more available. It's not 50 miles from our house, but it's 2 miles from our house, and that we leave a legacy of sustainability for the entire planet. And with that,